Hi, this is Dr. Bill Davison. Welcome you to our next webinar in our series. And of course, as you can see on the screen, this is our Yeast Beast webinar. And I trust you will find this one as interesting and as helpful as the last one which we did, which was on sugar control and the sugar handling problem many people have. And these two webinars are very much connected. So to get the most from each of them, it's important to view the two, because you'll see as we proceed how your sugar levels in your blood and yeast problems are very much connected. As it follows, what may all of these have in common? Headaches, mood swings, energy drops, cravings, indigestion, bloating, allergies, depression, mental confusion, and skin problems. It could be the yeast beast. Now, after 40 years plus of practice, the yeast beast is one of the most common contributors to many health problems that I have found. It is very common, and it is also one of those hidden problems that's often overlooked. It's one of the primary conditions that I find and treat in the early stages of any treatment program. And I can say that the results that I get by doing so are quite satisfactory, to say the least. Hi, I'm Dr. Bill Davison, chiropractor, osteopath, naturopath, holistic health practitioner, holistic health master coach, and author. Welcome you to the webinar. Now, yeast is part of the fungal family of living organisms. Candida albicans and mold are other types. And so there's different types of yeast and different types of mold, but we're just going to put them all under one umbrella and call them yeast, even though there's different kinds. Now, Candida is just one type of yeast, but as far as we're concerned, the human body, it is the most common. And it's the most common one to cause problems in the inside or the outside of the body, meaning on your skin. Excuse me. Now, when we use the term yeast, we refer to the whole fungal family, yeast, candida, and mold, which I've already mentioned. The yeast is actually a living cell that reproduces itself, causing an expansion and gas in its host. That's why we use it in bread, to make it expand and be lighter and to taste better. It can also be used to facilitate fermentation in the manufacture of alcohol, particularly beer. It is present in the human body, in all of us. When it overgrows, it can cause havoc in many of the systems of the body. It's also one of the contributing factors of toxicity in the body. There are many factors of toxicity, but Candida is one of them. Now, the digestive system and the bowel are particularly sensitive to the yeast beast, causing problems within those systems. It's a common cause to hiatus hernia syndrome, bloating, gas, indigestion, constipation, and diarrhea. Now, hiatus hernia syndrome is where the stomach pushes up under the diaphragm. And a true hiatus hernia is where you actually get a split in the opening of the diaphragm. There is meant to be an opening there to allow the esophagus to come down from the throat into the stomach as it passes through an opening in the diaphragm. And the stomach can jam up into the diaphragm, and it can cause a problem with the sphincter at the top of the stomach. That's your cardiac sphincter, and it's meant to open and close to control food coming in and not allow it to go out. And that's why you can get reflux when you've got a problem with that particular part of the stomach. that little valve or sphincter, same thing at the top of the stomach. It also, when the stomach's jammed up under your diaphragm, makes it difficult for the diaphragm to descend to pull air into the lungs, a bit like a bellows. So as you breathe in, your diaphragm goes down. As you breathe out, it comes up. So it moves down, pulling air into your lungs. So both the function of your stomach and your diaphragm can be affected when you have a hiatus hernia syndrome. The reason we call it a syndrome is because it may not be a true hiatus hernia. There may not be a split, but it still produces the same symptoms, which is why we call it a syndrome, meaning similar to, or a synonym. And so often when the stomach is pushed up under the diaphragm, it can cause all kinds of problems, including difficulty in breathing, even palpitations. It can even simulate or mimic a heart attack because the heart sits just over the stomach. When the stomach pushes up, it can put pressure on the heart. So we find this hiatus hernia syndrome very, very common in the clinic, and we have a simple technique that actually helps to move the stomach back into its natural position. So as with a lot of problems, you can get a number of components. So the yeast base can be one on its own, but it can also be associated with a lot of other things also. Now, yeast feeds on sugar and starch, and it can contribute to low blood sugar because as it feeds on the sugar in your blood, then obviously your blood sugar drops. And I already mentioned the sugar controlled webinar, and I will probably refer to this webinar more than once because they go hand in hand, the two. It can affect the energy source for the body and especially the brain. So when your blood sugar levels drop, the sugar in your blood is the fuel supply for your cells, all the cells in your body, especially the brain. And the brain, as you'll see, is sensitive, very sensitive to variations in blood sugar. So the brain is the most important organ in your body, and your body will sacrifice anything else to preserve the function of the brain. So you can get mental conditions such as depression, anxiety, dizziness, mood swings, memory loss, etc. when the blood sugar drops or even elevates, can cause anxiety, or contribute to anxiety. So your blood sugar does influence your brain function because it influences the energy supply to your brain cells. Therefore, a yeast problem can be part of any of those conditions that we've just mentioned. And of course, children with learning difficulties and behavioral problems are also, that is part of their brain function. And blood sugar swings and yeast sensitivity can be factors in affecting our children that have learning difficulties and behavioral problems because it's affecting their brain. As we mentioned already, the yeast competes with the body's own cells for sugar in the blood. Now, the whole body consists of cells which may be compromised for energy. The brain is the highest priority list of survival, and it's often the first to display a problem. Now, yeast or candida may interfere with sugar metabolism, repair, and regeneration of joints. What that means is your sugar is actually involved in the biochemical process of repairing and regenerating your joints. So if your sugar metabolism, and I don't just mean the sugar in your blood, but the actual production of energy from your sugar in your blood, and sugar is used in other biochemical pathways too, as we mentioned here, the repair and regeneration of joints. So sugar can actually be a factor in arthritis. Therefore, yeast and candida may be a factor in arthritis too. And if you're looking to get some results with arthritis, it's important you address your blood sugar levels and any yeast candida problem. Okay, why is it an epidemic? Which it is, because it is so common, as I've already mentioned. So why is it so? Why is it that almost most practitioners that I know will actually have that on their hit list, on their radar of things to fix? Well, the reasons are many. And of course, diet is the obvious one. Too much sugar is another obvious one. Too much yeast in our foods, certain foods. We'll get to that in a moment. Alcohol consumption. It's worth pointing out that alcohol is basically almost pure yeast and sugar concentrated, because you need to use the fermentation process to produce alcohol. So it is full of sugar and it's full of fermentation products such as yeast, especially beer. Pollution in the air can contribute to it, and lack of oxygen, because your body will get into that one too in a moment. Don't want to jump ahead too far. Now, there are other sources of yeast. There can be mold in all houses and in paint in all houses. Leftover food can actually be contaminated with yeast. The spores in the air, and fungus on plants, especially wheat. There is a particular type of fungus that grows on wheat and can often make people intolerant to wheat, because it's the fungus, not the wheat, that's making them intolerant. Now, if you put a piece of bread on a plate and dampen it, or not dampen it, but you dampen it, and this can be anything, like a yeast-free, shall we say, yeast-free wheat or yeast-free bread. Put it on a plate and you leave it for a few days, and what happens? It becomes moldy. Where did the mold come from? Well, one of the places it can come from is the spores in the air. So they circulate in the air looking for somewhere to settle and to begin to reproduce themselves. A lot of plants reproduce themselves with spores. Now, there are two methods of creating energy. One is where we burn sugar in the presence of oxygen. That's called the Krebs cycle. Mentioned in our last webinar on sugar control, how the energy currency in your body is ATP, which is like money that can be spent when you need it, or energy that can be spent when you need it. And so the body burns sugar in the presence of oxygen and other nutrients to create ATP, which is your energy currency. Now, if your oxygen is insufficient, like if you're doing anaerobic exercise, for instance, then you're not getting enough oxygen into your system, the body can move into a backup system called the Embden-Meyerhof pathway, which uses a fermentation process to create energy from glucose or sugar in the blood, same thing. You can produce energy from the sugar in the blood without the presence of oxygen, or if the oxygen is insufficient. So it's a backup system, but it is a fermentation process. And because it's a fermentation process, if you've already got these problems in your body, then the two are going to work against you, but they'll work together against you. So it can be a byproduct of that backup energy cycle system, and makes you sensitive to yeast problems. So the idea is to make sure that you don't have a lack of oxygen. But what can cause a lack of oxygen? Incorrect breathing, which of course we all do, especially if you have bad posture and you don't breathe correctly. You sit in front of a computer like I am at the moment, and I'm sitting up straight at the moment, but sometimes I forget and I slouch. So posture is very important, because when you have bad posture, then your diaphragm doesn't work properly. And so you don't get the right amount of oxygen coming into your system. We mentioned before the hiatus hernia syndrome, where the diaphragm can't descend because the stomach's pushed up under it. So that's another cause where you're not getting enough air and enough oxygen into your system. Air pollution, why does that cause lack of oxygen? Because you're breathing in polluted air, which may mean there's less oxygen, but also the pollution in the air is competing in your body for the oxygen sites. Lack of exercise, of course. I'll say, of course. You might say, why does lack of exercise cause a lack of oxygen? Surely exercise would cause us to... Excuse me. I just need a little drink for my throat. There we go. So, when you're exercising, what you're doing is you are making your heart and your lungs work a lot harder, so you're pumping a lot more oxygen into your system. Now, there's a product called Oxygenate in the Zeta 8 range, which may help to increase the circulating oxygen in your body. Now, the immune system should control the yeast piece, so it's the job of the immune system to destroy any unwanted cells or harmful cells in your body. So the immune system's job is to keep that under control. But if you've got an overgrowth, then obviously your immune system's going to be working overtime. So it can become overwhelmed and weakened. And when your immune system's weak, then you can get recurring infections because it can't do its other jobs, which weakens the immune system even more, which allows the yeast to proliferate even more. So you get a vicious cycle. Now, this is actually a complex issue, but I am trying to simplify it for you. Now, I want to talk to you about die-off. Now, when the yeast dies, it doesn't just magically disappear. It leaves dead and disintegrating cells, which have to be eliminated by the organs of your body. And those dead and disintegrating cells can be quite toxic because it's dead yeast. And the eliminating organs in your body, of course, your liver, your bowels, your skin, the kidneys. And when you get a die-off, you can actually get a reaction. So you can actually get symptoms like itchy skin. That may be noticeable during a treatment program. Now, you may think, does that mean I'm getting worse or getting better because I'm feeling worse? So it's important during a treatment program to realize that you may, excuse me, you may get some type of healing reaction in your body where you can eliminate through any orifice in your body opening. Your nose, your mouth, your ears, your lung, your vagina, your bowels, etc. And of course, the skin as well. Also, you may get a mucus problem like I have at the moment, just trying to soldier on through it. So please excuse me. So often, mucus is the way the body can eliminate its impurities. So if that happens, don't be alarmed. It just means your treatment is working very well. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't mean to say your treatment's not working. It just means your body's coping with it quite well. So something to be aware of with the die-off. So how can you tell if you have a yeast problem? Well, in our clinic, we do a simple muscle test to determine if you do have a problem with yeast, candida, or mold. We mentioned before, it can cause blood sugar level swings. It can contribute to allergies. It can contribute to Hyder syndrome and other things. So often your symptoms can tell you. We have a questionnaire, which you can also complete, which gives you a guide as to whether you could have a problem with that or not. But of course, the best way is to have a clinical test done, whereas the others are just guides. And we did offer a questionnaire with the promotion of this webinar. So you can go back to that and you can download that questionnaire. If not, just contact us and we'll supply you with that. So, what can you do about it if you think you have it? Well, number one, of course, again, diet. You're all going, oh, not again. Yep, I'm afraid so. The good news is you don't have to stay on the diet forever. Usually a month or two will do it, and then you can use moderation. So avoid sugar and all sweet substances, jam, honey, any type of sweetener, refined carbs, white bread, cakes, biscuits, etc. Starchy veggies, potato, pumpkin, sweet potato, carrots, so the body converts them fairly quickly into sugar. Sweet fruit and fruit juices, food containing yeast, such as bread, and alcohol and Vegemite. Particularly beer and alcohol. Some of the spirits are not as bad as the beer, but it's still better. Now, just to encourage you, don't give up. Don't say, well, I can't do that, because you're not relying on the diet alone to give you a response or to give you improvement. So what you do is just do the best you can. As long as you make the effort, that can sometimes be enough to, rather than say avoid, reduce. If you can reduce these things. So the more you can do that, obviously the better, and sometimes it's enough. And if it isn't, then you just got to be stricter. Okay, so the other thing you have to learn how to do is to balance your blood sugar levels, because when your blood sugar goes up too high too quick, that feeds the candida or the yeast in your body or in your bloodstream. So we recommend a protein breakfast and lunch, not a carbohydrate breakfast and lunch. Yes, you can have carbs, complex carbs, not refined carbs. You can have complex carbs after your protein breakfast or after your lunch, say half an hour to an hour after or longer, because your blood sugar levels do need to be kept up to a proper level. You don't want to get cravings, you don't want to get low blood sugar, and you don't need a lot of protein. Fish, meat, chicken, eggs, salmon, tuna, nuts, etc. And you go back to the sugar control webinar for that, and at the end we have an offer of the sugar control handbook, which gives you a lot more information on what to have for your breakfast and your lunch. So feel free to have some complex carbs a little bit after your protein breakfast, because your body digests them a lot easier when you do. Yeast-free bread, like flatbread, such as mountain bread. Excuse me. And sourdough bread, even though that does use a type of yeast, it's a yeast that usually the body can deal with a lot better and easier than the regular yeast that's used in bread. Now, some remedies. There is a selection of remedies that destroy and reduce the yeast colony. And in our clinic, we have a range of them because we find everybody's different. And so we have a number of different remedies that we test to see what's going to give the best result. Now, what we usually find is that 9 times out of 10, the body will respond to a citrus seed extract product. Now, yeast likes sugar, not bitter substances. Now, citrus is a bitter fruit. Citrus seed is even more bitter, and citrus seed extract is even more bitter again. So when you introduce citrus seed extract into the body, it actually helps to destroy the yeast colony within your body. Using oxygenate with the Citra 8, which is the Zeta 8 product, can also give you better results because you're oxygenating your system, which the yeast does not like either. Two other herbs which you could use would be cat's claw or poriaco. Poriaco is a great herb for many things. It may help balance your bloodstream. It may help not balance your bloodstream, sorry, balance your hormones. It may help to purify your bloodstream. In fact, some people have actually used it to try and help their cancer. Cat's claw has a number of good uses also. It actually is a great herb for helping the digestion. So, if one doesn't work, you can always try something else. But as I said, the best thing is to get tested to see what works best for you. But you'll find the Citra, it will work most of the time. If not, you go to cat's claw or poriaco. Important to detoxify your body. Spelling mistake there, if you can see it. Using the detox pack, these are 2 Zeta 8 products. Regenerate, which is a pre and a probiotic. And as you all know, the importance of probiotics, because that is a healthy bacteria, which actually helps to control yeast overgrowth because the bacteria competes against it. So the yeast has a natural enemy, if you like, a competitor in the healthy bacteria in your gut. That's why when you take antibiotics, they recommend that you use a probiotic because it can knock out not only the unhealthy bacteria, but also the healthy bacteria, which can then allow or create an environment for yeast overgrowth in your body. So if you've got a urinary tract infection and it's fungal and you take antibiotics, more than likely it will not get better, it will get worse. And we also recommend fulminate, colloidal trace minerals, which assist your body in detoxing. Although the colloidal trace minerals has many other benefits too. It actually helps your body metabolize sugar, so it helps with high blood sugar. It also, colloidal trace minerals can help brain function. So as with any product, it can have multiple benefits, as with these two. So to destroy the yeast, we've already mentioned the Citra 8, the citrus seed extract, which actually has some other things in there too, which help. We talked about oxygen being the main energy producing pathway, not fermentation. So using oxygen helps your body to stay in the non-fermentation energy producing pathway. Now an alien, meaning an abnormal environment, is an opportunity for yeast growth. So when you've got any bacteria or viral infections in your body that are compromising your gut, then it produces yeast is opportunistic. It would take the advantage of that situation. When you have one bad guest at a party, they invite all their friends. Hard to get rid of. Now, the immune system, we mentioned earlier how important it is to keep your immune system healthy. And we recommend something called Invigorate, which is a powder which has got many food extracts in it, which are very high in nutrition that you need to support your immune system and the other functions of your body. So you've got two options. Option A is to do number 1, which is the detox pack for 1 month. And then number 2, which is the citrate and oxygenate, for the next month. And then number 3, which is the invigorate, for the next month. Or option B is to combine 1 and 2 for the first month for a more powerful result. That is, you do the detox pack and the citrate and the oxygenate all in the first month. But don't take the Citra 8 at the same time of the day as the regenerate. Best time for your regenerate is first thing in the morning, and take your citrate at least an hour afterwards, because the citrate may influence the effectiveness of the probiotic. It may actually influence its effectiveness. So just to get the maximum value from your regenerate, don't take them at the same time. A little tip there for you. So what to do next? Well, excuse me, I've got a cough again. I didn't think this was going to happen, but we're stuck with it now. You can go to drbilldavison.com, which is my website, to order your preferred products, and if you do, we'll give you the special offer. If you purchase any product, you'll receive a free copy of the Sugar Control Handbook, which contains dietary advice, recipes, and all the charts you need to help balance your blood sugar levels for your personal, quick, and easily reference. I'm just going to get through this. So, that was the Yeast webinar. Oh. So thank you for your attendance. Appreciate it very much. And I look forward to seeing you on our next webinar. I better sign off before I start coughing again.